What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Alabama Football on YouTube. He's Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillispie. Great to have you guys with us tonight. Our show is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Yep, right there by Bryant-Denny Stadium. Steps away from the place that Alabama has won, at least has been on the march to winning all of these national championships. Find out more at westgateal.com. Next time you're visiting or maybe you're in the market to buy a condo, they are fantastic. We got a lot to talk about, but before we get there, please like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as you hang out with us tonight. Over 75,000 subscribers, and it's because of you guys. Also, make sure you light up that comment section. Always great to hear what everyone is thinking in there as well. All right, Trey, let's get into it, man. Good to see you. First off, we've got Mardi Gras season down here on the coast. Tomorrow's Fat Tuesday, the Mardi Gras on Wednesday. Oh, so everything going on. It's Ash Wednesday. What a week to be alive in the state of Alabama.
It is a great week. Happy Mardi Gras. Great to be back with you, Mick. And I hope you're enjoying it. You're in Mardi Gras country. We're up here in Tuscaloosa. It's not, too festive up here, but I know on the coast you got parades going on. You got your beads. I know you have a cool skeleton head there in the background that you added to the collection. So really excited to see all of that going down. Happy Mardi Gras, guys, and happy Ash Wednesday. Shrove Tuesday, everything else going on. It is a big week. It is, another February week of Alabama football, which means that there's not quite as much going on. But, hey, the NFL Combine is coming up this week, too. So it is going to heat up here. We're going to get into spring practice and all of that. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. Get in the comments. I know Chris Allen's going to light it up as always, and, the rest of our regulars. So please, guys, light it up. Hit the like button, all that great stuff. But, yeah, man, this is, this is a week where I don't even know what they're calling it, the metaverse of sports, or I guess that has a different meaning now. But, baseball, softball, basketball, all of this stuff is colliding at the same time. And, it's really exciting to kind of be able to cover it all, even though football isn't quite heated up, just yet. But we are going to talk about the Combine, some new hires, everything else tonight. How are you doing this week, Mick? How was the Mardi Gras festivities this weekend?
Yeah, look, it's been great, man. And, as we talk, it's going on. And like you said, so is the spring sports schedule. We'll talk a little basketball on the show. Alabama could be as high as a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. They're going to be right now a 5th seed in the SEC tournament unless something happens. They only have 2 games left, A&M and Vandy. We'll get into that later on in the show. Baseball and softball in action. Women's basketball going into the SEC tournament, limping in there as an 11 seed. We'll get into that later on in the show. But let's talk football. We got a lot of things going on. And surprisingly, on this Monday, you wouldn't think that there would be a whole lot to talk about, but there is a lot to talk about. And I'm excited to tell you that Todd Grantham is the newest addition to the Alabama football coaching staff. He was the defensive coordinator at Florida, right? And before that at Mississippi State. He is a tremendous coach. I knew when Dan Mullen had to fire him through, during the football season for the Gators, that it was something that he didn't want to do. And now he joins Alabama as an analyst.
Yeah, this is a cool hire. And, we're seeing the analyst role kind of open up into a lot of different things nowadays. Alabama has Zach Mettenberger as an analyst now. And Joe Cox was hired on staff, but he's going to be more of an analyst as well. And now Todd Grantham, just a list of names that you have on this staff that guys, that aren't even really going to be coaches for this team is insane. And Grantham, like you said, at Florida, had one of the highest payrolls for an assistant coach in the country. He was making $1.8 million last year. So, I don't know what the payroll is going to look like for Alabama, but this continues to stack. You get these names, and, with that comes, I think, a lot of really great coaching. Todd Grantham had a lot of success in Mississippi State. While he didn't succeed, at Florida, he wasn't put in a great position to do so there. And I think this is going to be another one of these guys that rehabs, probably isn't with the program for a super long time, but is going to help out in this year. Alabama is young, and they need as many of these different guys as they can get. I thought this hire was sneaky. It kind of came out of nowhere this weekend, but love to see it. Really kind of excited to see, like the rest of these analysts, how they fit into this staff. Some guys take on a little bit more than other analysts. I think Todd Grantham's going to be pretty hands-on, so really excited to see this hire.
Yeah. Well, look, it's what Alabama has as an advantage is that they have the resources to go out and hire guys like Charlie Strong, who was an analyst, and now, he's, again, one of the best defensive coaches in football. Todd Grantham, I think, falls into that same category. And as Alabama marches forward, it's going to be really an advantage to have someone with his experience and ability as part of the staff to help them break down some of these big games as they try to win a national championship next year.
It's going to be big in the film room, but I think on field too. And you have Derek Dooley, another guy I forgot to mention there. I think a lot of these guys are huge just for the organizational aspect of this program. Alabama does a lot of things great, but like you said, they have the resources to go out and get guys that have recently been in the NFL or recently been in Power 5 programs. For Nick Saban, at this point in his career, everything is run so tightly. I think even the coaches feel like they're almost players when they come into the program. They have to learn the ways themselves. And I think for a guy like Todd Grantham, it's big because, he just was with a guy like Dan Mullen that had a very similar mindset with the program. I think it's going to be a really easy transition. And like you said, it's just another guy that can help in the film room. It's another guy that, can maybe assist you personally. That's the thing that Alabama has that a lot of schools don't. They're able to split guys into groups of 3 and 2 instead of groups of 5 and 6 because they bring on so many different analysts like Dooley, like Grantham now, like Zach Mettenberger. So just can't wait to see, how this fits in. Thing I've noticed about the analysts too, you don't really hear about him after these hires are made. Season kind of gets into it. And, you talk about the Bill O'Briens, the Pete Goldings, the guys that are listed on staff. You kind of forget about these analysts. And I think that's another key in it too. These guys are able to kind of just secretly, come up with these game plans, secretly give advice, and nobody's kind of putting the spotlight on them like they maybe had in a defensive coordinator role or something else like that. So love this hire. Love what Alabama's doing with these analysts. As old as Nick Saban continues to get, he gets younger somehow in this game and continues to evolve with things like analysts, like the transfer portal, NIL, you name it. Nick Saban's on top of it and, proving it again here with Todd Grantham.
Guys, like and subscribe as you hang out with us. Give us a thumbs up. Thank you for being here. Monday Night Quarterback, as always, on the air at 6 o'clock, talking Alabama football on YouTube. All right, Evan Neal could be the first pick in the draft, and that spot is currently held by Jacksonville. Maybe Jacksonville trades this pick, but if they don't and they select first, there's a chance that they take Evan Neal. Now, talking with some contacts I have in Jacksonville, another former Alabama player really holds the key to whether Jacksonville drafts Evan Neal or doesn't, and that's Cam Robinson. And Cam Robinson could get a franchise tag, and if that happens, then maybe Jacksonville goes a different direction. If he doesn't, then maybe it's Evan Neal. Now, with that said, we're keeping a close eye on Alabama's best offensive lineman last year. He's skipping the combine, and I think that's a trend we're going to see with a lot of these players because of the COVID rules set up.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this isn't a trend that continues past 2022. I hope COVID is the sole reason. And, it doesn't look like baseball to where these arguments and these negotiations turn into strife that lasts for 2-3 years. And we don't see the combine look like it used to in the past. I think this year the pro day is going to mean just as much as it did last season when, there wasn't a combine and these players really had one chance to prove what they, could show to NFL scouts. That might be the more dominant, day for these guys to get scouted moving forward. I think pro day has had a lot of value, but I think there is still something to be said for the combine. For Evan Neal, like you said, he could go number 1, so it's not really necessary. For guys like Jalen Armour-Davis, some other guys that we're going to talk about in a second here, it is really important. But for Evan Neal, I think this is, maybe the worst decision in the world. I think this is a good call by him. He would have to work out and do his drills on the same day there. No reason to risk that when you've showed off your athleticism throughout the season in your box jump video, everything else. Evan Neal's the kind of guy that just needs to show up at pro day and do Evan Neal. He doesn't need to turn any heads or surprise anybody. Maybe to get the number 1 pick, yes, and to kind of expand on what Jacksonville is going to do. Why not? Why not choose both? You hear that in taco commercials. Why can't we hear that in Jacksonville, Florida? I mean, they could have an elite front, and maybe the money situation doesn't make that possible. But if there's a way to work that out, take Evan Neal, figure out with Cam Robinson, and just kind of go from there. But for Evan Neal, I get it. I completely get why he is skipping out on the combine. It's weird this year. It's different. The rules don't make a lot of sense for these players. So for a guy with first-round stock, top 10 stock, I get why he would skip out.
Look, if I was Jacksonville, I'd keep Cam Robinson and get Evan Neal and build an offensive line that could really protect Trevor Lawrence and give rushing lanes to Travis and the rest of that crew that they have that'll be trying to run the ball, right? I guess it's not the way that it works, but when you look at players who have been at Alabama and then move on to the NFL and you say, hey, how's this guy going to be at the next level? You're wondering to yourself as a scout, what are the odds that the guy comes in and performs at the type of level that you think that he possibly could? And I feel like Evan Neal is about as close to a sure thing as we've had. And we've had a lot of really good players come through Alabama. He's as good as at his position than, maybe all but a handful of guys that have played that under Nick Saban. And there's a lot of offensive linemen that are in the NFL doing really well, like Cam Robinson, that were wearing that Crimson Tide uniform at one point. Oh,
yeah. And Evan Neal is the next guy. I mean, it's kind of like Zion Williamson. I don't want to say like Zion Williamson because he's turned into a bust. I don't want to jump the gun there, but he's been a bust so far. But you cannot teach that size with that athleticism. I mean, we've seen the vertical, and we've seen how quick he is. And for an offensive lineman too, you really don't see that in the league. What makes the modern kind of player great is athleticism. What makes Will Anderson great? He's a big dude. He plays on the outside, but he's so quick and athletic. He makes up for, any kind of size issue he would have. Evan Neal is the same way. And I think that's why, you're going to see him go maybe number 1, maybe 1 through 5, somewhere in there, because the NFL teams can coach a guy. They can get in the film room. They can even change the diet, to make that what they want him to look like there, but they can't teach the athleticism. They can't teach the quickness. They cannot teach that vertical. And I think that's why you don't necessarily see him go to the combine, because he's already showed that off. The combine for a lot of dudes is their chance to turn heads with their vertical, or, maybe prove somebody wrong with your bench press or something like that. Evan Neal has nobody to prove wrong at this point. He's a quieter kind of guy. He's not going to be the dude to try to get in front of the camera and, really impress anybody at an event like that. He's going to take his pro day to be in front of the scouts, be around his coaches, be around his teammates, the guys that make him feel comfortable. And I think just take advantage of that opportunity. This is a guy that will make a lot of money, will be next in line, and great offensive lineman from Alabama. And, like I said a minute ago, I don't think he has to prove to anybody at this point that he deserves to be taken in the top 5, because he proved that this season. Unfortunately for him, he's going to get that opportunity at pro day around his coaches. So just really excited to see what he does there.
Yeah. If one guy doesn't need the combine, it's Evan Neal. If one guy does need it, it's Slade Bolden, who people like me have thought and said publicly that it probably isn't a good idea to leave and try to go into the NFL. But you know what? He's going to try to prove everyone wrong, and let's hope that he does. It just doesn't feel like, he's one of the top 150 wide receivers in the draft, let alone in the country, to be able to make an NFL roster. But he's going to try to do that, and hopefully he does. He's a smart player. He's been a great teammate, but is he a difference maker? He hasn't been so far, and that's what it takes to be successful in the NFL. He's going to the combine, and it's an opportunity for him to try to impress the scouts and maybe get drafted.
Yeah, this is weird to me too. I don't know, if I would have made this decision in his shoes with another opportunity to come back, but I heard something great one time, in the NFL, the NBA, really any pro league, there's superstars and there's specialists. Slade Bolden is never going to be a superstar.
Right.
Maybe he's got some Cooper Cup in him and turns into something, but he could be a specialist. I mean, this is the kind of guy that is a very smart player, does get out in the flat very well, and kind of, can set you up on first down, or could be that clutch dude on third down. He's not going to make a big, crazy play over the middle. He's not going to be your deep ball guy, but he could be a nice specialist for a team that maybe has a pick in the 5th round and they want to take a chance on him. I don't know if this was the right decision, but in the NFL, these guys look at different things. They're not necessarily looking at the stats in college or some of the highlight tapes. They're looking at, what skills do you have that work in the NFL? What things can we coach you to get you to where we want in the NFL? Something in college that I think is kind of taken advantage of is just the smarts of some of these players. You see athleticism on showcase in every college game nowadays. There's just so much passing, and the wide receivers become, a guy that has to have 7-8 targets or they're not happy nowadays. Slade Bolden isn't necessarily that guy, but he's the kind of guy that's going to get 3 targets that are really impactful. He made that play at Auburn to secure the victory there in the Iron Bowl. He's the guy that started out the season with a catch and ended it, with a catch there in the regular season as well. So I think he's your dependable specialist. I don't know if he's going to have a job to be able to do that, but I could see that lane. And I'm with you. I don't think this was the wisest decision at this point, but I've seen worse, and I could easily see this working out. We see the Hunter Renfros of the world, Adam Humphries. These guys haven't had success in the NFL. I don't know if that's Slade Bolden, but if there's an opportunity there, I'm sure he's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like, look, why not come back to Alabama? I'll say this again. You got the NIL. This guy would have been one of the most experienced guys out there, could have made some money and maybe worked on the craft a little bit more before going into the NFL. But you know what? Everyone has to put themselves in a position to try to achieve what they want to achieve. So we're all behind him, even though I feel like the odds are definitely not in his favor going into this draft. But you know what? If he has a big combine, like you said, it could be a difference for him. And maybe he starts to kind of prove people like us wrong, and we turn around and he's the next Cooper Kupp.
Maybe. I don't, I would hope. And like you said, I want the best for this guy. We're all behind him, but just give it a chance. This is what it's about. He's always been slept on. From Louisiana. He was a Gatorade Player of the Year, I think back in 2018, and he played on both sides of the ball. I mean, we didn't really know what his role was going to look like at Alabama. So he came in, figured out a way to become a starter. And I think he released a video on his Instagram a couple months ago, just kind of talking about this stuff. He's always been the guy that's overlooked. He's never been the first pick on the team, or, never been the guy that people want to start or want to get the ball even at Alabama. But he has been dependable at times. And, we could see him, I think, get into the NFL and just find a nice role. Maybe he goes to New England and can team up with Mac Jones again.
That'd be cool.
Just kind of have that rhythm in place there. It works for Bill Belichick's offense, the way he plays. So maybe there's a spot out there. I hope Cooper Kupp, that is reachable at some point, but I don't see it quite yet for Slade Bolden. But like you said, we're behind him, supporting this dude in the combine, pro day, everything else he's got going on.
Hey, prove us wrong, guys. As you hang out with us here on Monday Night Quarterback, talking Alabama football on YouTube, like and subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We're on the march to get 100,000 plus subscribers. We want as many as fit in the Bryant-Denny Stadium. So the only way we're going to do that is if you guys keep subscribing to one of the hottest channels on YouTube covering Alabama football with Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillispie. So let's talk a little bit more football here. I'm going to change gears. This is a subject that's kind of been on my mind for years, and I'm curious to hear what your take is. But Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports wrote a story last week, and we're just getting into it now. I mean, we haven't been on and done a show since, but I like this topic. Inside College Football's Attendance Crisis is the headline. Attendance hits a 40-year low, down for the 7th straight season and 9 out of the last 10. SEC lowest since 1999. ACC lowest in more than 30 years. Pac-12 lowest ever. And he says it's not just COVID and the convenience of a 70-inch TV. All right, attendance is down at the games. Now, you wouldn't know that going to, the Alabama LSU game a few years ago at Bryant-Denny or the Iron Bowl. But you go to some of those other games and, the student section's empty, or, the upper deck is not packed for Alabama. Nick Saban's talked about it before. He's tried to motivate people to show up. When they do, he praises them. When they don't, he gets on to them. Why do you feel like, not just in Alabama, but overall, college football attendance has been trending the wrong direction?
There's so many different, ways to approach this. And it's not just college football. This is all of sports right now. And it's, you could even go further than that. It's really anything you can go to in person. And something that Dennis Dodd said in that article that I think is important is it's not just COVID, and it's not just the 70-inch TVs at home that are keeping people away from the stadiums. There's so many different reasons. To start with Alabama, students wise, I think some of it's the ticketing process and whatever, but a lot of it's quality of football. And you can notice that, like the Pac-12 and some of these other conferences, there's just not quality football out right now. People, the attention spans continue to go down. People want parity nowadays. And we're seeing that in some leagues, but in college football, the past few seasons, we've had 3-4 quality football teams, and there's just not been too many quality matchups. People decide, well, hey, in a COVID year with limited capacity, the ticket prices go up. I'm going to save my money for, Alabama, LSU or Alabama, Auburn. I'm not going to go to Alabama, Arkansas or Alabama, Kentucky, even though, in the past, that's an SEC game. That could be a quality game. People, want the ultimate quality nowadays. And with COVID, people being told they're not allowed to go to the stadiums, I thought that might reverse this trend. And people, when COVID ended, or, I guess it still quite hasn't ended, but when sports really made their return, I thought we would see people make their return as well. And stadiums would be more packed than they were before. But we haven't seen that trend. And, you talk about people just staying home or watching it on TV. I don't think that's necessarily the trend either. You look at TV ratings, they are going down for a lot of these big events. Look at the NBA Finals. It's been a very similar decline. Super Bowl is going to be the Super Bowl. They're always going to be fine. College football, the national title, the playoff is always going to do the ratings. But overall, you're not seeing incredible ratings, with regular season games, with even conference title games in certain leagues. Overall, people are less interested, I think, because the matchups have been worse. The football hasn't been as good. Life has picked up a little bit. People are, having to deal with a lot of different things right now. So I think people in general are just less interested. I don't know what it takes to, kind of reinvigorate that spirit. I think the people that care still really care, but you're losing that general fan. Maybe it's ticket prices. That's probably where you start. You made a great point before the show. We're seeing increased ticket prices without, increased amenities or anything that's making that ticket more valuable when you get in the stadium. And even at the NFL level, it is an enhanced experience, but you're having to pay a premium in a stadium that has less seats. So I think overall, it's a system problem. COVID has a huge effect on this as well, but I don't think there's a simple answer to it either. Students-wise, you're going to see students at all these colleges continue to come out, support their school. They get into the game for free. The rest of the stadium, I don't know what the answer is. Ticket prices at this point can't really be lowered. A lot of these teams took losses during COVID and, they're having to make that up. And for a school like Alabama that just redid their stadium with money that they kind of had before COVID and whatever else that they're trying to divvy out to a lot of different projects, you have to make that money back that you lost in 2020. So I just don't think there's a simple answer right now. And it's a really complex problem. So maybe just start with finding a way to add value to the ticket, if nothing else, or add to the experience, because people will pay, if they get the value for what they're paying for. And at Alabama, it's not the quality of football right now because Alabama's just a little bit too good. But if you can enhance the experience somehow, like I know they're actively trying to do, I think that's where you start to get fans back in the seats. But, this is a problem that I just don't think there's an easy answer to.
Look, I've thought about this a lot. I mean, I've spent my life working in professional sports, and in the minor leagues, one of the things that you have to do is you have to make the fan experience really good or people won't show up and watch, because for the most part, unless you have, some kind of a superstar prospect, people don't know who the players are. And they don't really care about who the players are. You go to a Birmingham Barons game, if you're in Tuscaloosa, or wherever you're watching right now, and it's your local minor league team, you're going for the experience, right? The experience, the food, like they had to upgrade the food at a lot of these places, and they've done that. So you go and it's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to have the taste of whatever. You go to the Barons game and you can get Dreamland barbecue. The stadium's nice. The seats are comfortable. They're close to the action. The Barons, and I'm just using them as an example because they're the closest team to Tuscaloosa. They have a brand new stadium in downtown. Good People Brewing is right across the street. They have a great beer selection in the stadium, different craft beers, and also a lot of domestics that people like. The music's great. There's stuff for the kids. The prices are good. I've been going to Alabama football games since I was a student. It's been a long time. The tickets used to be, $35. Now they're $135 or more. I'm tired of sitting on a bench where I'm crammed together and there's three people in my row that don't belong there. And there's not enough ushers to go around and figure out who's supposed to be there and who's not, right? I go to the concession stands. This is a true story. I missed the entire third quarter of Derrick Henry running over Tennessee and one of the really classic games in that series, right? Josh Dobbs for the Vols had Tennessee ahead late. Of course, Jake Coker brought Alabama back to win with Derrick Henry. It was a great game because the Brookwood High School football band was doing a fundraiser in the concession stand, and they were slow because they're just band members. They're not like real concessionaires. They run out of hot dogs at the games, right? They've been serving the same hot dogs there forever, and that's fine. But maybe upgrade the food. You go to the zone, both zones, fantastic, right? And that's for those that haven't been to a game in Bryant-Denny. There's these group areas, right, that come with food, and you can drink. You get a locker if you want alcohol. The suites are always nice, but those are ritzy. The fan experience is the price is going up. And the amenities are going down. There's not enough. The bathrooms, you're still going to the bathroom as a guy in a trough, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You're crammed in there like sardines. Like, look, when you're paying a high school price, you're not that worried about it. If it's $40, you're like, you know what, $40, whatever. Now you're charging NFL prices and you're giving me high school amenities. If it was someone like Bill Battle, he's not going to get it, right? But Alabama has an AD now, like a Malmore, who saw the future when he was like, "Hey, we've got to build the stadium ahead of the competition." And I really think that Greg Byrne is the right guy to kind of direct this thing the way that it needs to go to keep attendance going up. And one of the biggest things is that you got to make the experience good. You got to make the experience worth the money that you're spending, right? And for Alabama, which I'm sure frustrates Nick Saban, is that one of the best parts of the experience that I didn't have when I was a student is that we're going to win about every game we play. So that makes going a lot better. If you're at Tennessee right now or some of the other schools in the SEC that aren't winning, that aren't on a hot streak like Alabama in a dynasty, that's a part of it too. You don't want to go out there and spend all the money and lose. At least Alabama wins, but you still got to do things to make the fan experience better. Cramming in 100,000 people used to work. I just don't think that's the formula anymore. I think you make the seats more comfortable. I think you make it. I'd probably do chairbacks around the entire stadium. And, invest in that. Have group areas too. Like where a lot of kids your age want to play cornhole and maybe have some of the other games on and different spots in the stadium where they can stretch their legs, and they're not, it's not so tight in there. The other part of it is that as a society, we have a very short attention span now. Like if you go into a baseball game lately, they got to put nets up around the entire stadium because people are looking at their phones instead of watching what's going on. The good thing is, and I do feel like COVID, I disagree with Dennis that COVID didn't have a factor in this. It certainly did. There's people that don't want to come out and didn't want to come out during COVID. And I think the other part of this is, the financial aspect. We kind of hit on that, how expensive it is to go. And then on top of it, it's just the fact that if you get a 70-inch TV, Chris Daltrey's watched a game over on my back porch. It is as comfortable on the back porch here with the TV outside and the kegerator behind me as anywhere you're going to watch a football game.
Right.
Stephanie's making pigs in a blanket. I'm sorry, Trey.
So that's what exactly I was about to say. You probably had some food ready to go. You had the beer. You had everything else.
Free.
I mean, that's the ultimate experience, and you're not having to pay uber amounts of money to do all of that. You're able to do that at your house. I think that's ultimately it. We can talk about the game itself and, the parity and this, that, whatever, but it really is financials. I mean, how many times have you paid $5 and, thought about the bathroom or thought about the concourses or the bleachers or anything else? If the tickets, are cheap, then people are going to stay and, not really worry about all of the negatives. Look at the spring game. That's a game where one team is playing itself. It's a scrimmage, but you still have 75,000 people because it's free to go to. And, it's an opportunity to watch your team and enjoy the afternoon without having to think about, well, how much value am I getting out of this ticket? Or is it worth it to spend all of this money to wait in these lines and use, all of this, the terrible facilities and everything else. And, we see these renovation projects. I think renovating the inside of the stadium, the infrastructure is where you start. Because like you said, if you're charging $145, there's just no way, that you can have bleachers and you can have the trough still, even as much as I love them. But
are you a fan of the trough?
I think it's a nice, it's just a nice way to do it. It's easy. You can get in and out. Nobody has to wait in line. I love the trough ultimately, but quick story, before we change topics.
Go ahead. We got time.
I'm not sure if you know about this. The Cleveland 1 cent beer night back in the 1970s.
I know about 1 cent beer night. Yeah.
These are the kind of things I think that get people back in the seats that we don't see very often. Basically, one night, the Cleveland Indians, if you guys have seen the movie Major League, you know about their struggles. This was a terrible team. That's a fictional movie, but it highlighted some real life stuff going on. They were at a tough spot in their franchise. And I think it was I don't want to say the wrong year here, but this year specifically, they were the worst team in baseball. They couldn't draw anybody for their games. And, one night, I forget who exactly was in town, but there was a little bit of a season.
I think it was the Rangers.
Yeah, the Rangers. I was going to say the Rangers.
Yeah, and they had those two teams had already been in a brawl earlier. Yeah. And didn't like each other. And I'm pick up where you were left off. Sorry.
Yeah. And that's why they wanted to get the fans in the seats. They wanted to be rowdy. So they sell beer for 1 cent. From what I've heard, how the story has been described, it basically turned into free beer night. People were going up, going out of the nozzle with it, just going up and refilling their own cups. But, it was an opportunity for the city to get out and pay $5 for a game maximum and, go celebrate their team with free beer, 1 cent beer, whatever it may be. And I know times were different. Inflation comes into play and everything else. But when you have specialty nights like that or events or, opportunities to add a ton of entertainment to your stadium, take advantage of that as well. Because if you're making people pay these insane prices, you have to give some benefits or people are going to stop showing up like they have.
Yeah, look, I think it starts with the concession stand. I'm not trying to take the charity events away from, groups like the Brookwood High School Band, right? But when I'm in a game and, I want to watch the game, like I want to go down and get a drink and head back to my seat. And I want it to be really fast, right? And when you have systems in place where you have people that, are paid to do that and not volunteering their time, and they're working to try to get that done for us, it just makes the experience a lot better. The selection of food needs to be better. You don't run out of hot dogs if you're at a game or pretzels. Look, you as the person that's ordering the food know that there's going to be at least 80,000 to 110,000 people at every football game. At this point, you got to know that. And if there's extras left over, yeah, that's fine. But running out in the second quarter, which people, I've said this before on my different programs that I do, will call and say, hey, dude, I was at the game and they ran out of hot dogs in the second quarter. Or they did that. And it's like, enough is enough. You can't run out of water. You can't run. They manage these concessions like a high school and not like an NFL team. And that is something that all of these schools, and not just Alabama, although I know Alabama because that's where I've gone for a long time. But I do have been to a bunch of games on the road. And I put Alabama in the lower middle of the pack.
Yeah.
There's a few schools you go to, like Tennessee, where it's crammed quarters. They just do a better job getting the food out. They just do a better job of the prices are better. That's the other thing. Someone was telling me they went to a Bama baseball game and it's like $8 for a soda. Come on, man. I mean, like you can't charge $8 for a Coke. Like it's ridiculous. You're killing me here.
It's crazy. And yeah. I think Greg Byrne is the answer. Like you said, I think, we're going to start to see some change. I hope. I thought we would have alcohol in Coleman Coliseum by this point, to be honest with you. But
another topic there.
Another story for another day there. But, I hope we see change. And if nothing else, maybe the prices won't change, but maybe the experience will. I think to kind of look to basketball here and, kind of transition into that. Once we see new facilities over there, it is going to be grade A. Baseball's got the grade A facilities, at least if you're paying those prices. Football is still just kind of behind.
Yeah. Well, it's going to take this being creative and being very fan friendly and sensitive for programs. And one day Alabama may fit into this, not now, but one day they will. When Nick Saban leaves, hopefully it doesn't happen for a long, long time, but they're not that good. When you're a mediocre program, you better have all the other bases covered so that people have a good time when they show up. At least with the way that this program's gone since Saban showed up, those home games for the most part are awesome because you're going to walk out of there feeling good about your team and a W. So we could talk about that all day. Let's switch gears, guys. Like and subscribe. Love all the comments in the comment section. Appreciate you guys for being here with us tonight. It's Monday Night Quarterback, talking Alabama football on YouTube. But we're going to switch now. So let's call it Monday Night Point Guard because we're going to talk some Alabama basketball. Another good week for the Crimson Tide. They win a couple games, and all of a sudden, the only loss they've had recently is against Kentucky. They're starting to build some momentum going into the SEC tournament. They've got one more home game, Texas A&M on Wednesday, which reminds me we'll be on at 5. That game is scheduled for 6. And then they've got at LSU on Saturday, then the SEC tournament. The tournament picture for Alabama is pretty clear at this point. They're going to be a 5 seed unless something really terrible goes wrong between now and then. But they can't be a 4 seed, and the top 4 seeds in the tournament obviously get a double bye. As far as the conference goes, Tennessee all of a sudden now sneaking up after their win over Auburn. Kentucky loses, and Arkansas has a chance to catch up. I think it's Tennessee and Arkansas trying to catch Auburn with a 1-game lead, 2 games left to play, although Auburn plays 2 games that they're going to win. So Auburn probably wins the SEC. So let's not talk about that. But let's talk about the Crimson Tide going into this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, this is, the time of the year hot, and they're hot right now. They have won 5 out of 6. You look at the month of February, they went 6-3. All 3 losses came to Auburn and Kentucky. So those are the teams at the top. You love what they're doing defensively now more than you did. I'm not going to say it's perfect or it's fixed, but it's better. There's a lot more energy at the perimeter. They're still exposing the baseline a good bit, but, the defense has just been night and day from what we've seen. And, on the other side of it, that sets up the offense. Shots are falling now. We're seeing 8-9 threes a game at least. We're seeing different guys to step up, which is, a really important part of this. We're seeing Javon Quinterly 1 game, Jaden Shackelford another. Keon Ellis had a huge night, the other day against South Carolina. So I just think that at this point in the season, this is what we needed to see. Don't love the record overall. You would have loved to go back in time and figure it out against Georgia, Missouri, even Memphis, some of these games, Davidson, and have that perfect record, secure yourself a 3 seed, maybe even a 2 seed or something like that, and the higher seed in the SEC tournament too. But, you take where you're at right now. You just have to get hot at this part of the year. It doesn't matter what happened against Georgia or Missouri. You're into the NCAA tournament. And, while they're not going to be a double bye top 4 seed in the SEC tournament, I like their spot there too. It's a tight-knit pack in the middle. And I think Alabama, if they win a game, could have a chance for a good matchup. I think really the only poor matchups for Alabama in the SEC tournament are going to be Kentucky and they're going to be Auburn, if they end up playing them again at some point along the way. I love how this team matches up against Tennessee. Love how they match up against Arkansas. Those are the 2 teams that I think could really make a run. But, just in this past week, you're seeing Alabama do stuff differently than they were. They're taking their time on offense. They're not forcing shots. They're really uptaking the pace and transition and making teams play on their heels. We didn't see that at Georgia. We didn't see that at Missouri. They were allowing teams to get open looks, and then they were slow coming down the other way. We're seeing really fast offense, but, they're taking the right shots now, and they're knocking them down, and they are playing good defense. And they, finally have a blowout win here. We hadn't seen that at all this season. Every game was determined by 10 or less points in the SEC. So it was good to see this team finally pull away and get a dominant win. And you hope they keep this rolling into Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, and you know what? When J.D. Davidson scores 10 points or more, Alabama's pretty tough to beat. Matter of fact, they haven't lost a game yet, and I like the way that this team is starting to define themselves now because I felt like last year they kind of peaked a little bit early and then they got into the tournament and they were trying to play catch up instead of really just having that loose feel that we saw throughout the season. Now, the other part of it, and we're learning this as well, Herb Jones was no joke. I mean, you watch him play defense in the NBA. He's found himself as a starter now. He's one of the best defenders in the league, and it's been tough for Alabama to replace him.
Very tough. And, statistically, the top defender in the NBA right now, if you guys watched last night, he was guarding LeBron James. So obviously that was quite the defender Alabama had last year. You're not seeing one guy pick that up, but I think what has been really exciting these last couple of weeks, you're seeing the backcourt kind of pick it up as a group. You're seeing Charles Bediako look a little bit more aggressive when he's defending the rim. You're seeing Juwan Gary cover a lot more space than he was. Darius Miles has been kind of a big piece of guarding the perimeter now too. And then you got guys like Noah Gurley that have been really consistent and steady down low. I would love to see the foul numbers go down a little bit and the turnover numbers, obviously. Been a lot of fouls down low, early in games. So you got to clean that up if you want to compete late into March. You're going to need your bigs to stay in the game. And health has been a big deal for this team too. Last year it felt like at all the worst times, somebody went down. Somebody would come back and then, another guy would go down. Juwan Gary finally gets healthy, and then you see other injuries come about. This year we haven't seen that. We've seen Alabama remain pretty healthy, and I'm going to knock on some wood right now. I know you guys probably doing so at home, but, if you can keep this team healthy, I think you're going to be okay because you just have so much depth and you don't rely on one guy to score your points. I think that's where Mississippi State fell apart. For a time, I thought they could win the SEC this year, but when you're relying on just a guy like Iverson Molinar, you're going to struggle. The thing that makes Kentucky and Auburn so scary, they have so many different elite players like Oster Tshiebwe or Ty Washington or some of these guys, to where you can't just ISO one dude and beat them. Alabama's similar. I don't think they're quite at that level, but if they get hot and they knock down their shots, they're capable of beating teams at that level, as we've seen throughout the season. So sky's the limit with this team. Love how they're playing right now. Gotta hope that guy right there, Javon Quinterly, stays hot because he's been the heartbeat. But, just love what Nate Oates has done with this group.
Alabama women's basketball quickly actually had a really good end of the season, won 3 out of 4, but another disappointing year for Christy Curry's team after finally getting to the NCAA tournament last year. 11 out of 14 as far as the seeding goes, 6-10 in the conference. They'll play Auburn in the first round of the tournament. She's been there a long time. People like me kind of ready for a change. Wouldn't mind seeing maybe someone younger come in. And I've said it to you guys privately. I'll say it on here too. It'd be great to have an African-American coach on the sideline representing the University of Alabama. Alabama has had 3 African-American coaches in its school history, as far as I know, right? So it'd be Wendell Hudson, who was with the basketball program and did a really nice job of kind of getting it to where it is now. And it's kind of plateaued over the last, 7 years. And then you had Anthony Grant with basketball, and then you had AJ, and then obviously Nate Oates now. But you know what? This team still has a lot to play for. They make a run through the tournament, and maybe they somehow win the SEC tournament, and that's the only way they're going to the NCAA. But all in all, just another subpar year for Alabama women's basketball.
Yeah, this is this is kind of what we've seen in the past. I think last year, this team took advantage of what they had. They had a lottery pick in Jasmine Walker, really good guard play, with Lewis and some of the other pieces on this team. And you're seeing some of those return. Allie Craig Cruz has come back. Been really good. You miss Megan Abrams, I think, a little bit on this team, but there's just not that senior leadership that they miss, that they needed to have this year, that they missed this year. And I don't know if it's a coaching problem. Coach Curry has been here for quite some time now. Maybe it's time for a change, but they did get a win in the tournament last year. You got to hope that, they get a couple in the SEC here and close it out the right way. It's a lot like the men's, the SEC men's, the league in general is just so deep, top to bottom. There's really not one team other than, you can maybe say Georgia, but that's really so far behind. And that's the same with the SEC this year. It's going to be a tough run in the tournament. I don't know if they're even going to get a SEC tournament win this year, but I say maybe one more year with Coach Curry. Let these girls get a little bit older. Let this team develop, and maybe see where we're at the end of next season. I don't know. I might think a little bit different than you do on that, but
I mean, I just feel like, you look at Courtney Struthers, who played at Alabama, and she's coaching and having success as a college coach, and then Joni Crenshaw, who played at Alabama and is coaching at Georgia, and they're a top 20 team, and and a tough out and a perennial tournament team, and no one cares about Alabama women's basketball. As a matter of fact, us talking about it right now probably makes most of the people on this channel mad. And it's the only sport like that at Alabama besides maybe track and field or something. I mean, women's basketball, it can be a really fun watch, and it can be a game that's exciting. Alabama's had a team. As a matter of fact, the most successful team they ever had basketball-wise was a team that got to the Final Four. A women's basketball team, and people loved watching that. But now, empty coliseums, and no one really cares. And I just feel like it's just at that point now where you say, hey, you know what? It would be fun to actually have something to talk about in that capacity. Now, let me switch gears and talk about a women's sport that people love to talk about, and that's softball. And that's because Pat Murphy's team is a wrecking ball right now. And you talk about playing with an edge. This team could have won the national championship last year. They lost to Oklahoma. It was a very disappointing end of the season. And every game they go out, it's like they're making the teams that they play pay for the fact that they didn't win last year. They go down to Louisiana and they have another really big weekend of success.
Yeah, this team is rolling. This is, this is a group that doesn't get enough credit. They're very hyped and there's a niche following, but I don't think this is covered enough because this group is truly dominant. This is team, I think 26. They like to put it on all the different stuff. 26 years for Patrick Murphy here, and he has just built a dynasty. Last year they should have won it. 3 years ago they should have won it. They played Oklahoma in both of those Women's College World Series, and I think this year could be the year because of who you're looking at right there. Montana Fouts is far and away the best player in the country. I saw on a list of marketability, some agency I think made up this list, top 10 most marketable college athletes. Montana Fouts is number 8 because she is just that dang good. And it's not just Montana Fouts. You look at this lineup, they're deep, with of course, big catcher transfer there and Allie Shipman, and, a nice middle infield as well. And, overall, you get Jenna Johnson in the outfield. Just love this group. Excited to see where they go. Softball gets to a bit of a different start than baseball. They play these tournaments. They're kind of able to rack up these wins. They're already out to 15-0. I think the college record is 27-0. They went for that back in 2018. So, just sky's the limit with this group. For as disappointing as women's basketball has maybe been, or even men's basketball this season, softball is going to make up for all of that the rest of this spring. And hey, baseball too. They didn't look too bad at Texas this weekend.
No, and let me say one more thing about the softball program is you got to just tip your cap to Patrick Murphy. I mean, I'm not a fan of the hashtag 26 because I remember hashtag 1, So, I mean, that kind of makes me feel like an old man. Maybe I am, right? But he has done an excellent job of staying fresh, staying relevant, of getting players like Fouts and Shipman, whose sister was a superstar player, one of the best ever at Tennessee, and she transfers in to catch Fouts from Tennessee to Alabama. That is a big get for the Crimson Tide. This program has just continued to find a way to stay relevant, to stay as one of the top contenders. They're there. Oklahoma's great this year. It's going to be fun to see how things continue to go for a team that is playing with a lot on the line. And as I said before, a chip on their shoulder. You go to a game at the Rhodes House, and it's fun. Like softball, even as a broadcaster, to go and broadcast a game, they're fast, they're exciting, there's a lot of action. The biggest difference that I can tell you from team 1 to team 26 is the level of athlete. I watch baseball for a living. I see it. There's a lot of players like Fouts that are as good as any of the guys that I see playing, athletically speaking, in their sports. So continued success there. Let's talk a little baseball now. You did bring it up. A sweep at Texas. Alabama was a huge underdog. They didn't go and get blown out, though. They got shut out. They got shut out 1-0 and 2-0, and they ended up getting swept in the series. Texas, keep an eye on them. Hey, guess what? In a couple of years, they're going to be in your conference. You're going to be playing them maybe every season.
Yeah, Texas is Texas is amazing this year. That's the number one team in the country. For those of you that don't keep up with college baseball, I know we don't talk about it too often, here on Alabama Football YouTube, but this is going to be a fun season for Alabama, and I think this weekend was, kind of a telling sign for that. This team is really good. This Texas team, they dominated everybody in their first weekend into their midweek, and we knew this was going to be a challenge. You're playing the number one team in the country on the road. Alabama looked great, though. They come out on Friday night, no runs scored, I think, until the seventh. Maybe it was the eighth inning, bottom of the eighth. Maybe bottom of the seventh in that one. But, just a dogfight in game one. You love what you see. How do the starters in this series? McMillan looked great on Friday night. You turn to the bullpen. You get some really good innings there. I think Alabama only used 4 pitchers in the first 2 days because you get Antoine John on Saturday, and he had a great start there, too. Alabama's schedule gets easier here after playing Texas. So, be sure to go over to the Joe Sewell Thomas to support these guys. But this is something I think that's really cool about baseball for Alabama. Maybe not the case in football because they just dominate everybody, but you have opportunities when you play in the SEC with how good the conference is.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be playing Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, teams that are all in the top 15, Florida, Vanderbilt, of course, and so many different programs in this league. You're going to get your opportunities. You go win 2, 3, 4 series, you almost guarantee yourself a regional. And from there, anything can happen. I mean, we saw Coastal Carolina go win the national title back in 2016. So this team is good. They're deep. Owen Diodati is probably one of the best raw hitters in the country. Big strikeout, home run, boomer bust kind of guy, but he's looked good so far and had a big home run this weekend too. So hopefully they can keep it going offensively. The pitching has looked great. Love what Brad Bohannon has done. Just like Patrick Murphy with that program. Not quite as far as Coach Murph over there, but he's certainly turning it around. And, this is maybe the first team that we see have some postseason success.
Well, they got a nice stadium, and they've really tried to figure out what Jim Wells was able to do in the past. And then, Mitch Gaspard had some good years, and then things kind of fell off. And now, hoping that maybe this is a year where Alabama can pick it up. And going and playing a team like Texas in Texas is only going to make you better down the road. But the schedule in the SEC is brutal. It's tough. Alabama and Auburn also have the disadvantage of dealing with scholarship restrictions compared to states that have the lottery scholarship. That's a whole nother story. But you know what? They definitely showed up. They didn't win, but they showed up and played hard. Look, man, we have gone way over what we were kind of scheduled to do, but that's because we've had a lot to talk about and we've had a good time. Anything else, Trey, before we say goodbye to everybody tonight?
Oh, just have a great week, guys. This is, I think the last week we're going to have to sit here and, not make up stuff or talk about the boring stuff, but talk about stuff that's not actually football. We're going to have spring practice starting in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have highlights and stuff like that, on our YouTube page, videos breaking that stuff down too. So just be posted for all of that. Like, subscribe, comment before we get out of here tonight, guys. Just thanks for being here. February can be our slowest month, but it's guys like you that support our channel that, really make this great. So appreciate you guys being here tonight. Mick, please keep enjoying the Mardi Gras festivities for me. I might come down to the coast and get some of that in at some point here, but until then, please get some beads for me or something.
I will. We'll hit the parades down here in LA. Special thanks to Chris Daughtry for his work behind the scenes and for all of us. We really appreciate you guys for being here tonight. Andrew Bone, tomorrow we'll talk recruiting. It'll be Trey and I on Wednesday. Kyle, of course, will always have what's going on with Alabama football. Anything breaks, we'll have that for you here as well. Thanks for watching Monday Night Quarterback. Again, every Monday at 6 o'clock, talking Alabama football.